Wise Mr. Love's top 7 marriage advice. That's right, I want to give you my top 7 marriage tips and advice. These are principles that I believe are essential in your relationship or your marriage, that I believe will give you success and help you to achieve the kind of relationship that you dream of love, intimacy, where you understand each other, where you're growing together spiritually, emotionally, and having fun as a couple, keeping the passion alive. You know, a lot of what we hear on television and radio and on the internet about marriage these days, you know, is very negative. You know, they make us believe that marriage no longer works. And as a result, many have opted for alternatives such as, you know, living together without any real commitment, without, you know, getting married. They're just living together. And because people no longer believe in marriage, you know, they believe that, some even believe that the moment you get married, all the passion dies in the relationship, which is a very big myth, you know. I personally believe that marriage still works and that marriage is still a good idea, but only when we do it God's way, because He created the thing, and who knows the product better than the manufacturer, right? Who knows the product better than the person that created it? You know, if you want to get this thing right, then you have to go to the person that made it so that he can teach you what he intended originally, so that by doing what He intended originally, you will get the results that you're supposed to have. So the following are 7 of the, you know, most important ingredients you need to have in your relationship, marriage, so that it can work out just the way God intended. Number 1, you need to develop the intimacy in your relationship. That's right. You see, when there's no intimacy in a marriage, husbands and wives become insensitive towards one another. Couples that lack intimacy in the relationship make no effort to meet each other's needs. They are self-centered and selfish, you can say. They usually walk in bitterness towards each other, and there's no evidence of companionship. The result is usually ongoing conflicts and fighting, arguments and abuse. If you want your relationship to be successful, then you must maintain the intimacy. I mean, it's not difficult to know when a couple are intimate. It's so obvious. It just seems to beam through them. Intimate couples are usually holding hands, talking intimately, laughing together, open and vulnerable with each other, gazing into each other's eyes. You can see the love. You can sense among them true love and affection. They don't focus on each other's weaknesses, rather they focus on each other's strengths. They focus on the strength of their marriage while working on the weaknesses. You can demonstrate intimacy by giving gestures of love, showing your spouse that you care, showing your spouse that you appreciate and value them. You see, intimacy is demonstrating not taking your spouse for granted. Please don't take your spouse for granted. Don't criticize. You can't develop intimacy by criticizing and always pointing at the faults. But you develop intimacy by building up the confidence of your spouse, showing interest in the things that your spouse is passionate about. To achieve this level of intimacy, however, begins with a love for God. When you love God, you will find it easy to love your spouse. You won't find it difficult to love your spouse as Christ loved the church. Christ loved the church so much that He was willing to lay down His life for the church. He was willing to die for His bride. He was willing to die for His church. And that's the level of love and intimacy we should aim for in our marriages, you know? To achieve intimacy in your marriage, you must also love and accept yourself. Oh my goodness, how important is that? You must learn to love yourself, because if you can't love yourself, how can you love other people? You can only love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. So if you don't know how to love yourself, how can you love and be intimate with your spouse? Loving yourself begins with knowing that you are created in the image of God and that you are wonderfully made, that you are special, that you are somebody worthy of love. Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that is whole, in a way that you're confident in who you are. Not trying to prove that you're somebody, but just confident in who you are and knowing that you are deserving of love. Okay, let me move on. Number 2 advice I will give is have a plan for resolving conflicts. You see, in marriage there are bound to be conflicts due to the differences between the two of you. The problem is that, the problem, however, is not really the conflicts, but how you handle them. It is advisable to seek to understand your spouse better, so that when the times of conflict come, you will know how to relate to them, because you understand how your spouse functions. So it's important to seek to understand your spouse, and by understanding your spouse better, you would even be able to avoid the conflicts in the first place, because you will know what upsets them and what makes them angry. Conflicts sometimes arise when we make false assumptions about our spouse. We then react based on our false assumptions, which end up hurting our spouse. Rather than assuming, seek to understand the full situation through proper communication before jumping to conclusions. Don't jump into conclusions. Don't assume stuff. Don't assume she's angry because of this or she's angry because of that. Seek to understand the situation. Communicate. Ask what's wrong. This will greatly decrease the amounts of conflicts you have, because assumption is the mother of all mess-ups. Also, when conflicts arise, avoid referring to the mistakes and conflicts of the past. Referring to past issues will only hurt your spouse and make matters even worse. So avoid doing that. Once past issues are dead, there's no need to return to them anymore. God himself, when God forgives us, he doesn't bring it up anymore. Once you're forgiven, you're forgiven. You know what I'm saying? Also, when disagreements do occur, seek to resolve them and not to win arguments. This thing is not a competition. It's not about, I won the argument, I'm right, you're wrong. I mean, even if you win an argument against your spouse, who you gonna announce that you won the argument to? You can't exactly go around the town and say, hey, guess what? I won the argument today with my husband. I mean, come on, that's foolishness. It's not really about proving that you are right and he is wrong, or you're right and she's wrong, but it's about trying to rectify the situation. And at the end of the day, like I said, if you win an argument with your spouse, who are you going to announce the victory to? You know what I'm saying? So besides, it's better to lose an argument than to lose your relationship. I would rather lose an argument with my wife than lose my marriage, because my marriage is more important than winning an argument. And my relationship is more important than winning an argument. And also be willing to apologize and make up first. Even if you feel that your spouse is the one that's wrong, it shows that you are bigger and the more matured person when you do this. Stop waiting for your spouse to apologize first. You be a bigger person. Be mature. You're not kids. You're not children anymore. And a sign of maturity is being able to swallow your pride and say, you know what, I'm sorry. So that the conflicts can be resolved a lot quicker. And then talk about the issues. Don't just say I'm sorry, but talk about the issues. Find out why it occurred. Find out why it made, why you upset each other. Seek to understand the whole thing. Don't just sweep it under the carpet. Don't just say I'm sorry, but not really get to the root and the bottom of the issue. The bottom line is to get to the bottom of the issue, and that's the only way you truly resolve a conflict, because it's when people don't get to the bottom of the issues, when they don't get to the root of the matter, that it keeps creeping up in the future, and they keep bringing up past conflicts, because they didn't really deal with it, they just swept it under the carpet. So deal with issues properly, okay? And you know what, I'm gonna leave it there. I'll give you the other 5 at another point. So I hope you've enjoyed these 2 tips that I've given so far, and look out for the others. God bless you. Bye bye.